In a comparative study of Japanese and American college students, authors Miyuki Fukushima and Suzanne Sharp developed the argument that collectivism in Japanese society generates stronger social bonds in Japan than in the more individualistic United States. The results of their research indicate that Japanese students engage in significantly less social deviance than Americans, and although variables in other studies propose predictors of deviance, the social control theory failed to account for the lower level of social deviance among Japanese students.
As it relates to pop culture, many people, especially people in Western culture, believe that Japanese pop culture is all about anime and karate films. While these do play a major role in our culture, they do not encompass everything that Japanese pop culture has to offer. Popular culture in Japan has a big influence throughout the world. Fashion is a huge part of Japanese popular culture, and in Tokyo especially, you can go to neighborhoods such as Ginza, Harajuku, Shinjuku, and Shibuya and see that just about everyone is wearing designer and high fashion clothing, as well as the countless number of shopping stores to choose from. An article written by Fashion Schools ranked Tokyo as one of the 10 fashion capitals of the world in 2017. Food is also a big part of our pop culture. Items such as ramen and sushi are things that we eat on a daily basis. These items have also become very popular around the globe, as you can go to almost any city in the world and find a sushi spot to eat at. As mentioned before, anime plays a big role in popular culture here in Japan. Anime is a style of Japanese film and television animation that is aimed at children and adults. There is also another form of animated television that we watch called manga. Manga is a more graphic and explicit form of anime that is typically aimed at adults. Anime and manga can also be in the form of comics, but they are not as popular as the films. The final part of our pop culture that I will discuss is sports. Sports play a big role in our culture as the Japanese are very prideful and competitive people. Sumo wrestling is considered Japan's national sport, but baseball, soccer, tennis, table tennis, basketball, golfing, skiing, snowboarding, and martial arts are also extremely popular amongst the Japanese in terms of participating and spectating. In our culture, we do not like to get sick or spread germs, and it is one of our biggest concerns here in Japan. Many people around Japan, especially in larger cities, can be seen wearing surgeon masks in order to help prevent the spread of germs or from irritating allergies during the spring and fall. While in most countries this may be seen as weird, it has become part of our culture here in Japan.
Masculinity and femininity in our country have always followed very traditional roles. Men have always held control and dominance over women and children in both their families and outside their families. They've been taught from a very young age to have toughness and to be strong. But the women in our country were taught to always obey their husbands and to be submissive, just like traditional roles. They've been taught to have manners and be very reserved for most of their lives. The idea of gender division in our country is still embraced, where men are expected to provide for the household while women are expected to cook, clean, and care for children. Although these traditional roles are still alive, they're trending towards a more equal approach. And according to a study conducted by Yoko Sugahara, there are diminishing gender role differences among men and women in our country. After conducting this research on college males and females, it was found that male students have become more feminine in recent years, which explains how gender role stereotypes have also diminished in our culture. Gender division of labor has diminished, and we are seeing more women enter the workforce. As society has went from hunting and gathering to industrialization, there have been more women, therefore, entering the workforce. At one point, a traditional male role was characterized by strength and dominance. However, this has since shifted to become more characterized by economic and intellectual achievement. Cultural values that once stressed different gender roles in our country have also slowly diminished, and overall our country still embraces traditional gender roles, but this is changing as time progresses. We live in a collectivist culture, but it's really narrow-minded to say that the entire country as a whole is collectivist. According to a study done by Niwako Yamawaki, different parts of the country are more individualistic than collectivist. Of course, we are less individualistic and more collectivist than the United States, but a city like Tokyo is more individualistic than the rural area of Yamagata. The divorce rate is often used to measure how individualistic a culture is. They tend to have higher divorce rates than collectivist ones. And while our divorce rate is still pretty low, it is rapidly increasing. And this is especially true in larger, more developed cities such as Japan, who has a really individualistic culture. Another aspect of our collectivist culture is our strong multi-generational family structure. In comparison to other countries, we have a high percentage of households with 3 generations living together, and our culture values taking personal care of our parents and grandparents by sharing living space with them. However, in more developed areas, there are more elderly homes being built, and the number of multi-generational households is decreasing. The percent of people living alone in our nation is low, especially compared to the U.S. Our culture seeks a lot of interdependence and communal living, and therefore living alone is not common at all. But we are seeing a slight shift in urban areas, as mentioned before, towards an individualistic culture. But the country overall is still fairly collectivist, and that's how our country has been and most likely will continue to be.